Decision to remove the fuel subsidy triggered hikes in pump prices from about 194 naira per litre to about 600 naira per litre in some states. The organized labor led by the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajero, and the president of Trade Union Congress, Comrade Festus Osifo, criticized the government's approach, highlighting the lack of engagement in exploring alternative solutions, stating that high cost of fuel has inflicted unbearable hardship on Nigerians, adding that the government must act fast with respect to providing palliatives and increase the minimum wage from 30,000 to 150,000. Mr. Peter Isele is the former president of the Trade Union Congress. He's also a former president of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria. He's joining us via Zoom to understand the role of labor in all of this and, of course, the call for palliative. Mr. Isele, thank you so much. It's good to have you on the program this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, let me ask the layman question, what is first your reaction? Finally, subsidy is gone. No budget for subsidy. We've been talking about this for years. Before we talk about the palliative aspect or the ripple effect of this move, in your thoughts, what do you think about this and implementing the PIA?
I think subsidy actually, except people were not expecting it, but I think with PIA, subsidy was gone about 18 months ago. I think what just happened was the last administration didn't have the balls to go ahead with it, because as soon as that became a law, you find out that most times what the government was doing was simply suspending an aspect of the law that would take away subsidy. So what the current administration have done was it really has no choice, because the outgoing administration have actually laid, whether it's a minefield, depending upon how the current administration will manage it, down for it, because as at 30th of June, there's no money for subsidy payment. And what you have was the Buhari administration said subsidy payment will come to an end by the end of June. But that statement was not backed by cash. So actually there was no cash to even pay for subsidy in June. So I think the Tinubu administration just have no choice than to go ahead and take away subsidy. The other side would have been probably a little bit of more consultation, even though I'm aware that the last administration have been having a lot of informal discussion with the organized labor.
Interesting. Let's take it from that level of consultation. And now NEC has been inaugurated by the president, chaired by the vice president, Senator Kashim Shettima. And one of what they are looking at is, palliative for workers, vulnerable groups, just to address the shortfall of subsidy removal. What, in your thoughts, specifically should be done?
Well, I'm not too comfortable when I hear the word palliatives, because palliative...
Maybe we say interventions then.
Exactly, because palliatives look too beggarly. It's as if the government is here and the rest. Meanwhile, the people who elected the government are the boss. So what I think I will accept the other word, the intervention, government intervention, to make it a little bit more bearable for the people. If you ask me, yes, the issue of minimum wage has to be revisited. And to revisit that, I will appreciate it's done tripartite. The tripartite will have to be there, not just government and organized labor. I'm talking about government, organized labor, then employers. NECA, National Employers Consultative Association, they also need to be there. Why am I saying tripartite? Is that if federal government and organized labor agreed, and then NECA is not in the picture, the implementation of that agreement in the private sector will be very difficult. And the other aspect is also, we should also have the informal sector also involved, so that the last time we did minimum wage review, the informal sector was involved, and that made it easier for everybody to accept. And you find out that the biggest challenge that the organized labor faced from all the usual minimum wage review is government itself. There are still some states who have not been able to pay the 30,000 minimum wage. So minimum wage review should be one of those items that should be in the front burner. Then the second one should be easing the cost of transportation. If you look at a state like Lagos, Lagos have a transportation structure that is already on ground. Rivers State has it. And then you also have part of that in Kano, Akwa Ibom, Enugu, Edo State. So these states that have transportation infrastructure already on the ground, government should engage with them to see how that can be sorted out as soon as possible.
Well, the government is mulling 702 billion naira to civil servants as cost of living allowance. That is also something that came to me today. Like, how far can we get with this? And also, FG wants World Bank to help invest in CNG. You are former president of Pengasan, so you know most of how all of this plays out. Would you say that this is the way to go? CNG and, living allowance to civil servants?
Yes, I think what the federal government is trying to do, first, you have to identify what I call short-term, medium-term to long-term goal. The short-term should be minimum wage review. Then within that short-term to also short to medium-term should also be states and federal government coming together in collaborative effort. I heard the president talked about that when he met with the 36 state governors. Collaborative effort to look at what they have to do to make sure that the cost of transportation will be reduced maximally. And then the investment in CNG will now be medium to long term. Because why am I saying that? Is Lagos, you have BRT buses, and you take, for example, if we have waterway, if water transportation is investment in water transportation, if we make it safer for people to use water transportation, you can imagine somebody walking on the island, living in Ikorodu. He doesn't need to go by road. He can just take the water transportation and he will find himself on the island. And if somebody living on the island going to Ikorodu, there will be no need. So once you are able to achieve that, you are also going to have people reducing the cost of transportation. And why would people not want to go by waterway? Because of lack of safety. And then if you now invest in CNG, one, is cheaper. Secondly, is cleaner. So we are now in an age where everybody is talking about clean environment. So if we are also able to invest in CNG, it's going to be cleaner, and down the road it will be better for everybody. And when you ask whether this is the way to go, I think the options available to this government is very, very thin. It's either take it off or bust.
Interesting stuff. Staying with the industry now, because like I said, you have a knowledge, you have good knowledge of this industry, so you can take us through all of this. How attractive is it at the moment for private players to import petroleum products at the moment? How competitive and attractive is it at the moment?
It's going to be attractive. It's going to be also be competitive, because now you can sell. You have a template you can sell, and you are not afraid that nobody is going to pay your subsidy payment. Let me give an example why it became only NNPC has been bringing in the product in the last couple of years. The reason why that happens was that you have major marketers, they stop importing. Then you also have independent marketers, they also stop importing. And the reason that was a fallout from the fact that government was not paying subsidy. So if I bring in a product and I'm expected to sell that product in 90 days, and I will not get subsidy payment in 6 months, definitely I'm going to be out of business after a while. So what major marketers and independent marketers decided to do was that they didn't want to play at all. So NNPC now became the single entity bringing in product into the country. And NNPC also now became the only one that have access to FX. So even if you want to go get product in, you will have to go to the parallel market to get in product. So if NNPC gets a product at 461 or 464, and then you have to go to the parallel market and get at 700 or between 700 to 750. So how are you going to break even? That's the reason why the private players completely left that sector, left that importation. So what is at play here now is that the businessmen have one thing in common. They are like an ant and a sugar. You don't need to even call an ant to come have a sugar on the table. The ant will naturally gravitate there. And what that invariably means is that the businessman wants to make profit. Once the environment is conducive for it to make profit, the businessman will generally just move in that direction. I think what they are doing right now is studying government policy and saying, is this government really serious about this? And then when they've realized that, I think from July, we are going to have private sector players start bringing in products.
That would be a very good one. But some would. Let's talk refining before I ask or maybe let me make it a two-in-one question. Some would say, Mr. Sele, that kerosene, diesel, aviation fuel have been deregulated, totally deregulated. And we know how much they sell for per liter as at today. That is a question on one side. And many are saying, are you sure PMS will not go that route? That is number one. Number two is refining. Refining is key at the moment. And everyone seems to be talking about Dangote refinery, and we are forgetting that government has some refineries where there's even a rehabilitation in one of it, the one at Port Harcourt. How can we bridge all of these gaps and just one way or the other help reduce costs one way? How can we just help reduce costs with all of these fundamentals around these issues?
Well, refineries, yes, they will come up, but one of these, you said something about whether to not go the direction of diesel and kerosene. Of course, it's going to go in that direction. And then it's going to go in that direction in the sense that you are going to have the international price, the international crude oil prices is going to dictate how much you are going to pay at the filling station. So if the price is $40 to the barrel, then definitely we are going to pay less. I'll use diesel as an example. Right now, diesel is going for, you can get diesel at 620 naira. December last year, diesel was going as high as almost 900 naira. So the what you have is going to play out in the long run is that the international crude oil price will dictate the price of petrol. And on the issue of refinery that I'm talking about, the government, Port Harcourt refinery will come on stream before the end of the year. Worst case scenario, first quarter of next year. That's the projection by NMPC. Mr. Dangote himself said we should be expecting the first product coming out of Dangote refinery also by July. But again, we are not expecting that the 650,000 barrels a day is going to come on stream immediately. But probably from between July and December, we may be looking at maybe 40 to 50% of its capacity. So if we have that, if you look at 650,000, and if you are getting about 300,000 barrels per day refinery capacity then, and then you have the NNPC also coming on, and then BOA, don't forget, BOA is also going to come on stream at 2024. Hopefully BOA will come on stream in 2024. So what I'm happy about is we will have what I'll call our energy security will be guaranteed locally. That's one. Then the other aspect is that this is also going to guarantee a huge employment opportunity in that sector. Dangote himself, direct jobs over 130,000, and then indirect jobs, you are looking at about 300 to 350,000. So put BOA is also coming with half of that. So you look at the future looks bright for refinery, and then you also look at the West African sub-region. Then we really can play. Because the West African sub-region we are supposed to provide energy for the entire West African sub-region. And that is also more FX for the country. Because if we're able to export, the local, if once we have satisfied our local demands, what we have left can't go for export. And that means more dollars coming to the economy. I heard your correspondent talking about the FX, talking about liquidity. Once we have all of this coming in, then we will have more liquidity in the FX market.
It's interesting stuff there. While we wrap up this discussion, I'd like us to look at issues around smuggling. Now, many would say that with this, smuggling will be unattractive. We even hear that some neighboring countries are already protesting, saying fuel is selling high. That means this attests to that fact that smuggling has been on all the way. So how do we factor all of this in while we try to get things right, instituting the PIA?
Now, the beauty of this is that, yes, smuggling will become unattractive. We lose between 5 to 10 million liters of PMS being smuggled from Benin, Togo, Cameroon. They all have it, and that's why we are seeing the protests coming from those countries. So what we have now, nobody will even care. Nobody will care whether you take the product. Once we have enough of those products, nobody will be interested whether you take the product across the border or you not sell. You see, what we have done is also good for the government of Benin Republic. The smugglers in Benin Republic don't pay tax. So, but when you buy a liter of petrol from the gas station in Benin or Togo, they pay tax to the government, because for every liter of petrol, there is an amount of tax you pay in Benin or Togo. So the government there are not very happy because nobody is patronizing the roadside smuggled PMS anymore. So for that, it's beneficial to the system in these countries. But for us, whether once we've done all of this, government is not paying subsidy, anybody can take his product and sell anywhere. If you want to take your product, you want to go sell in Cotonou, you want to go sell in Togo, good. But the fact is that you're also going to bring that money back into the economy. So in the long run, I think it's mutually beneficial to the government of Nigeria and also the government in the sub-region.
Well, it's a good way to live. It's an interesting conversation, and I know we can go on and on. Mr. Peter Esele, I must thank you so much. Former President, Trade Union Congress, also former President, Pengasan. Thank you so much for your insight into this topic. We'll definitely reach out to you again to speak around this sector.